Welcome back, everybody, to the Brazilian Dragon Podcast for a discussion about the Oscars from 2025. And my name
Yes.
is Felipe. And as always, I am very excited to introduce last year's best Oscar for being from Arkansas, Jacob Smith.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I won
Yes.
that award fair and square.
What Oscar would you most want?
Um, of like the ones that already exist.
Sure.
Yeah, I think. Um, well, if I was ever like a proper filmmaker, I would definitely want like a director,
Okay.
best director. Yeah.
Future Best Director winner. Jacob Smith. Jacob, how are you? Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm good. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Now, we are here talking about the Oscars. Did you have any sort of like special way to celebrate it? Do you have any Oscar routines that you do every year?
Um, no, not really. Normally, I always do a ballot. So the most like popular one that you can get online is the Vanity Fair ballot.
Okay.
So I always do that and fill it out. But no, not really. I'm not really. I just always make sure I have to watch it. I've been in a different location, honestly, like 3 years in a row. So that's never really anything particular.
Yeah. And then do you have like an earliest Oscar memory?
Um, yeah, I feel like I do. Gosh, I think I started watching them around 2012.
Okay.
Um, I don't remember what one. Really, 2013, I remember vividly because that was the year Matthew McConaughey won Best Actor, and The Wolf of Wall Street had come out, and we were like at the age where it's like, oh, you can't see that movie. This movie is so vulgar, so
Yeah.
much nudity, and so I remember that vividly. And then 12 Years a Slave won Best Picture that year, and that was a really good year for movies. Actually, I could probably go back as far as 2010 because I remember that was when Toy Story 3 got nominated for the Best Picture, which was a big deal. And that was also the first year the nominees went up to 10 and from
Yeah.
5 for Best Picture.
Yeah, there was, I feel like early middle school is when I like started like paying attention to the Oscars. So that kind of era, 2008, 2009 for me, because I think I'm a year or two older than you.
Yeah, I think
Um,
yeah.
but like I remember it being a big deal that like the Hurt Locker won Best
Yes, I remember
Picture.
that.
Um, and I remember that, yeah, that was definitely a big deal. I remember also some standout like memories is also like the memes, like when
Oh,
Moonlight
yes.
won. But there was the whole hullabaloo with La La Land,
Yep.
Adele Dazeem, of course, with John Travolta when he messed up her name. Like I feel like I remember a lot of the meme
Oh, I don't even
moments.
remember that.
That one's like it was just like he looked up I think he was like now performing Let It Go is Adele
Oh,
Dazeem instead
wow.
of Idina Menzel.
Yikes.
Um but yeah, just like live TV shenanigans. And just, I mean, of course, I remember where I was when the slap happened.
Oh,
Uh,
me too. Me too.
I remember like group texts were blowing up.
Yes, I mean, you were kind of confused because
Yeah,
they kind of cut it a bit. So it's like, what just happened? And you heard him yelling and oh,
yeah.
we thought it was a bit at first.
Have you ever thought about the fact that that will literally be in like history textbooks at one
Yeah.
point? Like
Yeah.
that's wild. Like what a life we live.
I mean, he is now 1 year into his 10-year ban, so
Yes.
that's
Um, but then he
wild.
was also like at the Grammys, and I was like, who let him here? But
I think we've all forgotten about it.
yeah,
And of course you have to forgive people, but I mean, it's an infamous television moment for sure
yeah,
that he will never live it down. And
no, and
I don't think Chris Rock has spoken to him since, and I wouldn't either. Just they're fine. They're gonna make a bunch of money. They'll be fine.
yeah, they're both like they're
Still
both
gonna be
making
successful.
more money than I am right now, so I think their lives are fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I'm trying to think. I mean, of course, last year we had My Eyes See Oppenheimer. That was so funny.
Yes. Oh my
Um,
gosh.
so yeah, I feel like the Oscars are always like kind of trippy. Did
Who
anything stand? Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, who thought it seems like actually the trend is to invite I don't know why my camera's moving super old people to introduce the best picture winner, and
Yeah.
9 times out of 10 they mess it up.
No, exactly. I did appreciate like the Meg Ryan, Billy Crystal at the end, and
I
like
did like
they
that.
had good banter. But
Yeah.
like I feel like they're also a little bit more still working and with a lot of these people, so it felt like they were more comfortable on stage versus like Al Pacino. I feel like he's working only in like projects that he's doing.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think he is definitely just saying yes to whatever,
yeah.
So nothing wrong with that.
But I mean, I definitely was kind of like, hope one day I at least get to be a seat filler in one of these things. Like that would be so
Oh,
cool.
totally. Totally.
Because I was just thinking about like we were talking at work today about like just watching the concert that would have been Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, which started the whole thing off. There was like this weird like Wizard of Oz motif throughout the night. I don't know if you caught that.
No, I didn't.
With like this and then with the Wiz moment for Quincy Jones
Oh, yeah.
later, and of course Wicked being a part of the whole thing, but I felt like they were definitely like highlighting that world a lot more than like a traditional Oscars would highlight an individual film. But I think just because there's so much lore with Oz since like the early days of filmmaking, it's so like prevalent in
Uh-huh.
that kind of world.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I loved Wicked for sure. And I thought it was deserving of all the nominees and all the things it won. And I love The Wizard of Oz too.
Yeah.
So that's a film that I think is timeless. And yeah, now that you mention it, looking back, I definitely can see a couple of those motifs now. But the
Yeah.
opening was stunning. I mean,
Yeah.
absolutely amazing.
Do you want to just dive into like it? I kind of just wanted to hit on that with thoughts because it just came to mind. I was like, "Oh, that's a good light bulb. Let me go hit
Yeah,
it."
of
Like,
course.
yeah. So we mentioned Wicked. Actually, before we get into like the specific movies that won different things, did you see all 10 Oscar winners this year, or like which ones were you missing out on?
Yes, no, I did not actually. I don't know. I've kind of gotten to a point where I'm gonna watch what I want. What's that noise? Oh, sorry.
You're good.
I like I'm gonna watch what I want to watch, and so yeah, there was a couple I did not see. I did not see Amelia Perez, and was the film you really liked. I'm Still Here.
Yeah,
Was that nominated?
yeah. So that was the Brazilian one.
Yes. Yeah. So I did not see that. I do want to see it. I really wanted to see Nickel Boys, but
Yeah,
no longer being in LA and being in Arkansas, that's a film that is hard to find. So I'll have to watch it on digital.
yeah. I want to see Nickel Boys also. Like everything that I saw from the movie, both in like the clips they would show, as well as like scenes that I it's like or clips I'd seen on YouTube or TikTok or whatever. Like I
Hmm.
thought was so like ingenuities. I don't know what word I'm trying to find there, but like I thought it was so like creatively done. Like this
Ingenious.
ingenious. Yeah, I
Yeah,
thought the
I
filmmaking
love the idea.
style and I thought it was definitely robbed of like cinematography potentially
Mm,
for that
yeah.
kind of film. But yeah, so you saw everything except Amelia Perez, which I did not see either.
Yeah.
And I'm still here. And I from what I've heard, I dodged a bullet not spending my
Well,
time watching Amelia Perez.
I feel like that could be a whole nother podcast episode because there's so much like, reportedly goes into it that I don't think you and I are educated enough to talk about. But
Yeah,
I also I've heard a lot of people talk about, and I've only heard one person say good things. So
yeah,
it's not on my list. I don't have any interest in watching it, but I don't feel like I'm missing much. However, I do love Zoe Saldana, and I'm glad she won.
yeah. She took away the best supporting actress role, and then also El Mal won for song. I haven't even like. I feel like usually I hear if an Oscar song has momentum behind it, I
Yes.
feel like I'm gonna hear the song in regular day context,
Uh
and I
huh.
never heard any of these songs.
Same, yeah. I didn't
Yeah,
even know the nominees. I had no idea that the Elton John one existed. And then Amelia Perez had two. I had not heard either of them. And then I don't remember what the other two were. But
like I feel like years past, like even if I don't know the song when it gets nominated, I feel like I'll hear it like because people will start playing it like
yeah,
RRR I had never heard of, and then I heard it like literally in more like general
it was
settings.
on TikTok a lot, I think.
That too, yeah. I think
Yeah.
that's also like none of these songs really broke through the TikTok barrier as well.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's like a social media thing or if that's a marketing thing. I don't if
Hmm.
they like didn't push for that hard enough. But yeah, I didn't genuinely was very surprised by all the songs.
Yeah. I also will say, like, even though from everything I've heard, it kind of is not the cleanest and best representation for trans people, and everything Carlos Sofia Gassan did was like not kind of cool in my books.
Yeah.
But I will say, at least they're like giving a platform to a trans actress for this role. Um,
Yeah. Well, I think
'Cause-
I think the concept is very like cool and it's like something we never seen before, but then it
yeah,
just seems like they botched it very badly. And also
exactly.
I've heard it's very offensive to like Mexican culture, because I think
Yeah,
the
he's
director is
French.
actually French. Yeah.
Yeah. And it would be like one thing if this was like a French and Mexican co-production, but it seemed like it was like very much coming from a French man
Right.
that like didn't have much experience with Mexican culture. But
Yeah.
like you said, we are not the most educated people to talk on
No.
this subject. I just from everything I've heard, including like a couple of my friends who are trans, they like just hated this movie. Like
Mm.
my Mexican friends also hated it, so I just feel like
Yeah.
everyone hated it.
I know. But I will say, so yeah, Amelia Perez, I don't think I'll ever get to, but Nickel Boys and I'm still here, I want to.
Yeah.
But the best picture nominees that I did watch, I literally loved all of them. And
Did you have
honestly,
a
that kind
favorite?
of yes. So Anora was my favorite film of the year. So it was a great Oscar night for me. Um, and honestly, that's one I in my initial I saw the film in October, and in my initial letterbox review, I literally wrote, "I hope this wins Best Picture, Best Director, Best Editing, and Best Actress," and it won all of those.
Yeah.
So I was kind of surprised because the film that I thought was going to do all that was The Brutalist. The Brutalist is also great. It was in my top 10, but that's when you look at The Brutalist, it's like, okay, the Academy is going to eat this up. Like, this is a once every 15 years movie. It was so well shot, so well made. And Adrian Brody was the rightful choice as much as I love Timothy and Bob Dylan. A Complete Unknown was my second favorite movie of the year. So I loved that movie, but Adrian Brody really was fantastic. And honestly, I probably would have given Best Director, I probably would have split Best Director for The Brutalist and Best Picture to Honora. But I love Sean Baker. He's a very genuine independent filmmaker. So it was really a big win for independent film.
Yeah, and they definitely reiterated that point throughout, which I appreciated. I also appreciated that Mikey Madison, like she took a moment to shout out and thank the sex workers and
Yeah,
like speak on that topic. And I was like, oh, like I was surprised. I thought it was going to be Demi Moore.
we all were. We can talk about that because that
Yeah,
was a big deal.
and of course, like I was biased, and as someone who saw I'm Still Here, I love Fernanda Torres, and I would have loved if she won the Oscar. I always was maintaining she's the dark horse. Like if they want to like
Yeah,
uh give her some accolades, I thought like obviously I'm biased, but I did genuinely feel like she was the best, my favorite performance of the year. I
yeah.
didn't see the substance though because I'm a scaredy cat. Even though when it was back in
What?
theaters, I was like, I
It's
need
not
to see this
scary at
movie.
all.
People just explained it wrong to me because then when I found that out, I was like watching the clips and I was like, oh, I could do this. Like when Conan did the mockery of it, I was like,
Yeah,
oh, I can do this.
it's
Body
more like
horror.
yeah, cringy. Like if you don't like blood and all that.
Yeah. I did want to get to it when it was back in theaters, but I will watch it. I will make a time to watch
Okay.
it. Would it be good around Halloween?
No, I
No,
think
it's
anytime.
not even like connected to like spooky at all.
No, no.
Okay. That's so
I
weird.
think it's just because it's a subgenre of horror, which is the body horror,
Yeah.
but that's not like, jump scares and scary.
They did win which category did they win? I
Makeup. They
wrote it
want
down.
makeup.
Makeup and hairstyling, which was great. Yeah. And Wicked won best costume design and best production design for some of the more artistic, like physically
Yeah.
artistic skill sets. And did you want to touch on any of that?
Yeah, well, just like when I was specifically those three that you just mentioned, kind of those technical categories, when they would list off all the nominees, I was like, man, I would be happy if any of these won. So like those were some where I just weren't picky as normally as I am. And this was also the first Oscars in a while where I was really satisfied with every winner and don't think they got anything wrong.
Yeah.
Even though the best actress was a big surprise, she was very deserving. Mikey Madison was amazing.
hmm Yeah. We definitely had a lot of things that I felt like the temperature of the room I was in everyone was like for the most part satisfied. Because even the things from like a movie that had a lot more division, like Amelia Perez, like they still won categories that people were like, oh, I'm okay with that. Maybe
Yeah.
not so much songs, just because again, I don't think anyone knew about the songs.
Yeah.
But like Zoe, I think had a lot of support behind her, and I think she's such a talented actress that it was time that she got
Yeah.
celebrated with
Totally.
that. Especially as someone who like loves her more blockbustery type roles, like in Avatar and the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Um, were there any like notable snubs in terms of the nominations this year? Out of
Um,
curiosity?
Normally that's something I really like hone in on, but no, I mean, I think a lot of cases there just isn't enough room for
Yeah,
for like, sometimes you want six or seven, but usually there is like someone who should not be there, in my opinion.
yeah.
But I didn't really feel that this year.
So my big take is like obviously I think Cynthia and Ariana were both incredible, but they're
Uh-huh.
gonna have the same exact chance next year.
Yeah.
And selfishly, I think Zendaya's performance in Challengers should have been
Ah.
instead of Cynthia, or they could just put six people there, and I would have been fine with it.
Yeah. No, well, I kind of disagree with that 'cause
Are
I
you
thought
a
Cynthia.
Challengers? Like I know there's like two camps. People love Challengers or hate Challengers.
No, I really like it,
Okay.
but I do think Cynthia Erivo was incredible, and I don't know. I feel like you and I have actually talked about this before. I am not a huge fan of Zendaya's, and so yeah, I guess I wasn't. Just the
Valid.
challengers wasn't on my mind when the nominations came out,
Yeah.
except for the best original score. It should
Yeah.
have won that, in my opinion. It
No,
won the
I
Golden
agree.
Globe.
I agree. It was like that was probably the biggest snub of the year. It
Yeah,
wasn't anyone specifically. No, I felt like Challengers was not even like referenced in the Oscars at all.
it wasn't. Yeah,
Which like I
nothing by
feel
Luke.
like they've
I
previous
think
yeah,
Luca's other film,
queer.
yes, Queer. Thank you. I liked it more than
I
Challengers,
need
and
to
that
watch
got
that
no
one still.
mention. Maybe
Yeah.
that's also if there was a sixth place for the best actors, I would have put Daniel Craig there for
Okay.
sure.
Yeah, I definitely have noticed that there was like a substantial like amount of movies not represented like because I feel like at least in some of the past Oscars they like referenced all of the sorts of movies that come out in the year, not just the ones that are nominated. Like they usually do like a montage, or maybe I'm thinking more of the Emmys, but like
I
they
think you're
love
right, though. I think you're kind of right.
referencing like last year they referenced a lot of like they did a sketch with the host Jimmy Kimmel did a sketch with like and we did see Conan with the substance at the start, but I feel like there wasn't a ton of like Conan parodies of movies or like references to
Right.
some of the more blockbustery moments of the year. Like I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're right. But yeah, I mean, I honestly was pretty satisfied with all the nominees and the winners. I think the supporting categories are also always ones that are like tricky. I remember last year, hands down, the biggest snub was Charles Melton not getting nominated for, um,
May December.
yes, May December, and you could also, I'm not going to name who it is, but you could look at the best supporting actor nominees last year and be like, that guy should not be there. That should be Charles Melton. So there's always one of those. But this year, no, I think everybody was really deserving, and I loved all the winners.
I need to look at this because I don't remember who was nominated. My first instinct is one person, but
Well, if
uh
you, he's a great actor, but the movie was not that great,
okay, okay. That's interesting.
or like his performance, I don't think
Yeah.
was anything special.
Um, were you familiar with any of the animated movies this year?
Yeah, and that's one I was actually wrong about. I thought I loved the Wild Robot, and I thought that was getting a lot of steam to win. But then I've heard good things about Flow, so I haven't seen it. I do want to check it out.
Yeah. I've heard only good things as well. I'd seen three of the five, I think. I'd seen Wallace and Gromit, I've seen uh Inside Out 2 and The Wild Robot. I thought Wild Robot had it, even like though I heard Flow had momentum. I was like, but I feel like this is like
Yeah,
such a good celebration of like what animation can be in its totality, like with also a strong story and strong voice acting, which I know Flow doesn't have any dialogue.
Yeah, which is I honestly love that. I love movies like that with very little
Yeah.
dialogue.
Did you see
It's
Robot
just a
Dreams?
no, I did not.
That one, highly recommend if you like those types
Does
of
it not have
movies.
dialogue?
No, it's so good.
Okay, nice. But yeah, no, I the Wild Robot of those nominees I thought was the best, but then I haven't seen Flow, so that could overtake it as the best. But yeah, animated feature is I love animated movies.
Yeah,
People should never, dank on them because Guillermo del Toro says it a lot because he's really passionate about them. Like he says, the possibilities are endless. You know,
agreed. And I mean, I'm a big animated movie guy as well. I think it's just like such a great form of storytelling that is like I wish more animated movies would get Best Picture nominations more often. Like
mm,
I think there's only been a handful of them. Like Toy
right?
Story 3 you mentioned, Beauty and the Beast way back
Yep.
when. Uh but it's so rare. Was Spider-Verse the first one nominated for Best Picture?
Um, no, that may have been the most recent one, but
Yeah.
I think the first was actually Beauty and the Beast.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. I definitely think animation is for everyone and it gets kind of a bad rap in some
yeah.
film streets.
I mean, yeah. Now that you mention it, I think maybe that you should try to. I mean, if you were an Oscar voter, maybe try to include at least one in the Best
Yeah.
Picture nominees.
Yeah. But then they're also kind of tipping their hand for what they think will win Best Animated Picture.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's true.
but yeah. But I mean, things can be nominated for multiple categories.
Yeah,
So
and they often
ugh,
are.
yeah.
That's become a recent trend in the last few years is the international feature getting not more and more Best Picture nominations, and then Parasite was the first one to win it. You
Yeah.
know,
And I love that. I mean, I feel like I'm Still Here is not an Oscar movie 5 years ago.
yeah.
Um,
Well, that's
or
honestly the
maybe
next day. A lot of the top headlines were the Oscars are going international, and that's like a good thing. We're here for that.
yeah, because I mean, just because I mean, obviously we love Americentric films, but like there's so much stories out there. Like for
Oh
me, like
yeah,
one of my dreams is to travel more, and it's like the world's an adventure, and I want to learn more about it, and that comes from learning other people's stories, especially like I I love like if it's a good movie, it's gonna transcend language and
yeah.
all
Well, like
that.
I mean, you're a Brazilian person, so we had a Brazilian Best Picture nominee this year, and
Yeah,
so I think yeah, and I think the documentary was from Iran, and
yeah.
um, yeah, so I think the Oscars are
And
definitely
Flo
trending
is
more towards that.
Latvian. Like
Yeah, that's right.
so and of course Amelia Perez.
Yeah.
But like still like I think this is I feel like the Oscars used to be America's biggest night in movies, and now it's starting to feel more like the world's biggest night in movies. And just I don't know if you saw any clips of like Brazil, people watching in the streets of Brazil.
No, I didn't.
I will find one and send it to you on Instagram or something. But it was really cool to like watch it. It was like kind of they projected it like it was Times Square.
Oh,
Um,
that's cool.
but um, did you watch A Real Pain?
Yes, I liked
Eh,
it.
Yeah, Kieran Culkin won for the best supporting actor role. I've heard a lot of people yell category fraud, but it's also I love Kieran Culkin, so it's kind of like I'm personally fine with it. How do you feel about
I
it? And
mean,
then what did you think of his speech? Because I loved his speech, one of my faves.
yeah, it was one of my faves too. Um, but no, that I disagree with that category thing. A lot of times people look at it as screen time, which give or take, yeah, like that's valid. He probably had just as much, if not more, screen time than Jesse Eisenberg. But the category is actor in a supporting role. And if you watch the film, Jesse Eisenberg's character is the main character, and Kieran's is the supporting. So I think it's justified. And
Yeah,
yeah, he had won all the awards leading up to it, so we knew he was going to win. But he's extremely quirky. He's extremely very much his character in Succession. Like that's actually him.
but like a
And
likable version.
right, right, not an asshole.
Yeah,
And yeah, his thing with his wife was very sweet and very fun. And I think it was genuine, and that's kind of the most important thing.
yeah. I thought the story that he told was hilarious, and um, who knows? There might be
I know.
baby Kieran Culkin number 4.
I know,
Um,
yeah.
Well, unless he records an audiobook, I feel like he at least she can rest assured that he won't win a Grammy.
I could not listen to that. I couldn't
Yeah.
listen to an audiobook.
Um,
No.
so we talked about it earlier, but The Brutalist won a couple of awards. They won cinematography, music, and Best Actor for Adrian Brody. What
Yes.
did you mentioned that you love it. In terms of Brody's speech, how did you feel about that? That was another moment that
Yeah,
definitely has people talking.
I know. What's it? See, I love Adrian Brody, and I feel like he's kind of overlooked a lot. I've always liked the guy, and so I was like, I was almost like on the high that he won. That I wasn't really caring, but there was a point I was like feeling in my gut, and I was like, okay, this is like, let's go, or like this is cringe, or like when he told him to cut the music, that's always an awkward moment. And yeah, I don't know. He definitely was just like trying to gather his words. He was like trying to think, but that's like you shouldn't use that on stage. He was like asking the crowd, like, "Who am I forgetting?" And all that
Mhm.
stuff. So I don't know. I still love the guy, but I think it was definitely. I mean, he set the record for the longest speech ever. So
I just was like, my guy, you were the front runner. Why did you not have anything prepared?
I
Uh,
know that's a good point. I didn't think about that.
he was just like rambling and rambling and rambling.
He
And
was
I
at
felt
a
like
loss for words.
2% of what he said actually like impacted me in any sort of way because he spoke about like the rise in anti-Semitism
It
right
was at
now.
the
And
very
like,
end.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that was like the best part of his speech. But I was just like, it was getting to a point, and then I felt bad for one of the music guys earlier. I don't know if it was music or sound. One of the sound guys from Dune, who he like was pulling out a piece of paper,
Oh
and
yeah.
he didn't get to speak because they were three guys that had to split one acceptance speech.
Yeah.
And they like kind of accepted it, and he walked off. But that was probably like my guy's possibly only opportunity. Whereas Adrian Brody, you're like an A-list actor.
He's already done it
Like,
before.
yeah, you've already done
He's
it before, and.
he said this is not my first rodeo.
Exactly. I also thought back to the Emmys a few years ago where Jennifer Coolidge got played off stage, and I was just like, I wonder what it would be like if he were a woman who was doing that, like what the reaction would have been, because I felt like
Oh yeah.
um, a woman would have gotten a lot more criticism for that, and it's just not kind of cool. I don't know. I was kind of like, there was a point where I was like, dude, just like wrap it up. Come on,
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
respectful to
I
the
felt that. Yeah, the social media comments are already like not very kind to it, but
yeah,
yeah, and you make a good point. If it was a woman, I mean, it'd be like how embarrassing, like
yeah.
how like kick her out.
The gum thing was also kind of gross. Like, ew.
Yeah, I
That's
thought that was
Oscar's
cool.
carpet. Yeah. She did
She
catch it.
caught it.
If she
Yeah,
didn't catch it, I would have been like more
yeah.
grossed
Come
out.
on.
Um, but yeah, he was pretty good in it. I know there was like some AI controversy with like the Brutalist
Yeah,
for that. Do you know much about it? I just remember hearing rumblings of it, but I don't know the details.
yeah. So I think it came out that they had used AI to create the buildings because he's an architect
Yeah.
and there were shots of the buildings and everything. But the director and the filmmakers came out and said the only time they used it was trying to perfect the Hungarian subtitles because they speak Hungarian in the film. And so, I take their word for it. Like, I mean, this information is out there, so I firmly believe that the stuff could have been just fake, and then what the director said was true. But we'll never know. But
Yeah.
I believe them. I think it was just for the subtitles, which is no big deal.
Yeah. It's something that like I had on my radar, but I didn't know the details, and I was like,
Yeah,
if it becomes more of a story, I'll hear about it.
yeah. Well, I know. Like, I mean, could also. I also actually wondered. I was thinking because like probably like 3 weeks or a month before the Oscars, it was like, oh, the Brewers is going to win everything, blah blah blah. And then it kind of lost steam, and Nora picked up steam by winning some of the other award shows. I'm just wondering if that had something to do with it, if it kind of hurt its chances, the AI rumors, because
Yeah.
someone we worked with at Warner Brothers on Letterbox, they watched the film and loved it, gave it like 5 out of 5. And then after that came out, they went back and changed the review to like 1 star. They're like, oh, I can't hate this movie because it used AI. So yeah, I wonder if
Yeah.
that impacted the voters anyway.
I think I know who you're talking about, but I'll ask you off of
You
the
you could
air.
look on Letterbox, yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, yeah, so I definitely think it probably impacted. I mean, like not in the same catastrophic way that Amelia Perez was like impacted by the discoveries and controversies of the things Carlos Sofia Gaston said and the whole Netflix debacle that happened afterwards. But I definitely think that it's possible. And like Honora was kind of like something that I heard at the start was like
Mhm.
a front runner, like right when it came out. But then I was like not, I felt like it kind of dipped in the background for a bit and then came
It
back
did.
strong at the end.
Well, when it won the Palme d'Or, that was a big deal, and it was the
Yeah,
first American movie to win it in like 15 years. So, and also I think for me, it was like, well, the subject matter for this movie, there's no way the Oscars will go for that, you
that
know?
part. I also thought the fact that it was like an October release. I feel like a lot more things come out like December area, maybe like something would
Uh-huh.
have surpassed it, and it could have if like Nickel Boys was a couple weeks earlier potentially.
Yeah.
Because then I feel like Nickel Boys would have had a little bit more attention. Like I feel like the sweet spot was the holdovers last year. I feel like because it
Mm,
came on strong at the end.
yeah.
Um, Still need to watch the holdovers,
Oh,
but
me too. I'm glad I'm not the
yeah.
only one.
I feel like I'm gonna love it. I hope I love it because I've heard such good things about it.
I have two, and I love Paul Giamatti. So I just
Yeah.
remember being turned off by the previews, but everyone I've seen says it's incredible.
And
So,
I feel like a boarding school story speaks to me like because
okay.
I feel like that would be interesting. Like the I've always been fascinated what happens like if you had to like stay overnight at school one time. Like those types of stories have always fascinated me even as a kid. Like uh those like teen shows that had the sleepovers in the gyms. Like I don't know if you've ever watched Big Mouth, but they had like an overnight sleepover in one episode. And I was like, oh, those types of stories interest me. So
Yeah.
like you're the only kid
Well,
there.
what I think about when you mentioned that is there's a movie from when we were younger called Unaccompanied Minors. And it
Yeah,
was
the
like,
airport.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I because I honestly TSA like the little conveyor belts. I've always kind of wanted to go down one and see what
I
it's like
know.
there. And I think Toy Story 2 and that movie.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Uh um
Everyone gets it.
I they look so fun. Did you watch Carry on
Yeah, I
Netflix?
liked it.
Yeah, I felt like they also like depicted it in a way that I'm like, I still want to ride that. Like you're not
I
turning me off
know.
of
Like,
this
I wonder
idea.
if that's accurate or if it's, that's what it actually looks like.
Yeah. In terms of, I think we hit on most things. Doom won a couple Oscars for visual effects
It
and
did.
sound. Are you a Doom boy?
I am. I love it. I
Did you like
need
the
to
first or
rewatch the
second more?
second. The second one is better. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's
Uh,
just so much richer.
yeah, I definitely appreciate Dune. I feel like I need to watch Dune at home where I can take breaks and digest scenes more because I felt like I was just kind of like lost in the world.
Yeah.
So I try to like appreciate it because I can tell it's such a well-made film. I just feel
Hmm.
like I have too much ADHD for the movie and get distracted easily. And
Okay.
then so like the movie does feel like a little bit more of a slow-paced kind of film versus like it's not super frenetic all the time.
See, I actually feel the opposite. I think it's just this big, magnum opus thing that is meant. I saw both of them in IMAX, and I've only seen the first Dune once at home, and it took me forever because I was so afraid it was not going to be near as good because I think it's just such a big scale that it's hard to do on a home screen. But it does help you understand like the languages and like the world and the details because you can just pay attention more. And
Yeah.
that's kind of why I've been putting off the second one too, because I'm just afraid it won't live up to that theatrical experience.
No, that's valid. That's valid. But I could t like the sound and visual effects are clear like standouts in
Oh yeah,
filmmaking. Like and I feel like even the Dune cynics can appreciate that aspect of it.
yeah. I think the first film won the same awards as well, and more.
Yeah. It's like for whatever reason, one of those like sci-fi, maybe because it's a little bit more I don't remember which one means what, but soft sci-fi or hard sci-fi. It's a little bit more, I think fantasy sci-fi also that I've always struggled more with fantasy shows, but like all the other sci-fi stuff like really hits for me usually, like Star Wars and
Hmm.
Avatar and the Marvel movies. So I was like, I feel like I'm missing out. I want to enjoy the Dune experience with everyone. I
I
just,
think I would agree with that.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I've never been a huge science fiction guy in general, so it just has to be a really good sci-fi film for me to
yeah.
enjoy it.
And then I think the last thing that I have here, besides international, which we hit on briefly when we talked about the Brazil
Hmm.
parties, like so I'm still here winning. That really got me excited.
Yeah.
I was worried about it, but it was Brazil's first ever Oscar, so I'm very excited about
Oh,
that.
nice.
And then lastly, we didn't talk about Conclave and how it won adapted screenplay. So Conclave, did you watch that movie?
I
Yes, you
did.
did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of my friends from like the reality TV circles that I've met, they're like, "Oh, this is like Survivor the Pope."
No,
And like it's like a reality
that's true.
show.
That's accurate.
Yeah. And I feel again some FOMO on this one because I did go see Conclave, but
Okay.
as soon as Nicole Kidman stepped in that puddle, I started feeling very sleepy and I passed out and only woke up for the last 30 minutes of it.
Okay.
But so like I everything I watched I enjoyed, but I was just kind of out in the theaters and it was like a 1 p.m. on a Friday. I had no business
Wow.
getting that sleepy, but I think it just hit me like, movie theaters are set up for me to want to fall asleep in them if they're with
Yeah.
the reclining chairs.
Well,
So
yeah. I like how you said Nicole Kidman stepped in the puddle. I didn't know what you were talking about at first.
yeah,
But
the AMC ad, yeah.
yeah, the Conclave, I mean, that is just a drama through and through. And it is a
Yeah.
quiet movie. It is the lighting is like
That's
not too dark, but not too light. I mean, I
probably
can
also
easily
part
see
of
you
it.
falling
Like
asleep to it.
the
Yeah.
whispering, it's like, oh, it feels like kind of
Yeah.
like ASMR-y.
Ray finds his British smooth
Yeah.
voice, and yeah, that movie, I liked it. I think it was very well made. I actually thought that was the best edited movie of the year. I thought it was going to win best editing. I'm still very happy that Sean Baker won for that. And then Ray Fiennes was terrific. And I've always been almost obsessed with like everything Vatican related. I think there are so many secrets. I think it's all fascinating. I think the process
Yeah.
is fascinating. So seeing a movie made about like how that process goes was really cool, and I really appreciated that for sure.
I definitely thought it was fascinating because I also remember like when I was in high school and they had to pick a new pope and
Yeah,
like I was always like a little curious about it and then never really thought much about it afterwards. But no, it's definitely something super interesting to me as well.
yeah.
Uh, how'd you feel about Conan as a host?
I actually, I'm a little surprised because I didn't love it as much as I thought I would, and he's gotten a bunch of good reviews, which is great. But it just seemed like, especially during his monologue, like a lot of the jokes were not landing, and like it seemed like there wasn't much laughter coming, but maybe there was more, and there was an audio thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely think his opening monologue was gonna be like I feel like in a few years I'm not gonna remember it at all. Versus like
Yeah,
the memorable opening monologues. I thought Nikki
yeah.
Glazer's at the Golden Globes
Oh
was
yeah.
a lot stronger. And I don't know. I just feel like it wasn't memorable. The one thing I will remember about him hosting will be that zinger about Honora about
Mm.
Russia, and I was like, oh,
I remember
uh,
that, and then the joke about the actress from Amelia Perez about
oh
her
yeah, he did like go
publicist.
straight for her
Yeah,
throat with that.
but she loved it apparently, which is good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we're all tired of Jimmy Kimmel. Um, he was hit or miss. I still think the best Oscar host I've seen was Ellen. I love Ellen, even though
Yeah.
there's a lot of controversy around her. But I remember that Oscar was very memorable. The selfie. When you were talking about memes earlier, that was the first Oscar I remember being really memed.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've seen that Oscar
Yeah.
statue.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and so have you. I'll tell you,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
later. But we have yeah, Ellen was a good host. Like I'll give her that. I thought Ellen, like I mean, Ellen was one of the first stand-ups I ever watched.
Hmm.
So I think she's very funny, even though like the behind the scenes stories are not the kindest to her.
Uh-huh.
But I also think like, do you have any like upcoming people that you would like be like, oh, this would be a great Oscars host?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I'm just not big on like stand up and stuff, so I'm
Yeah,
not really in tune with that community. So I don't know. I'm usually not very picky, but then when they
yeah.
announce somebody, I'm either like, oh no, or oh good.
I
So
would
with
love,
Conan, I was excited, and
yeah.
I think he did a fine job. I like him.
Um, do you watch Seth Meyers' show ever? I think Amber Ruffin is a writer on that show. I feel like she would be a great host. I don't know if that's something she wants, but I feel like she'd be a
Yeah.
very fun host. Billy Crystal, of course. Like I've seen clips of him doing
Oh
that
yeah,
stuff,
he's
and
the record holder.
yeah,
And but now that you mention it, I mean the no brainer for me. I love the guys. Jim. I think Jimmy Fallon can do anything,
yeah,
and I would love it if he hosted. I'm a huge fan of his. So
yeah. He's in one of my favorite rom-coms, a Boston movie named Fever
Fever
Pitch.
Pitch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I am partial to that. Jimmy Fallon performance as well.
I mean, the
So
guy is
yeah,
so talented; he can do anything.
yeah. Big Survivor fan, Jimmy Fallon as well.
Okay.
So he probably loved Conclave.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
sure he did.
we didn't really like actually talk about Mikey Madison. Did you feel it was an upset at all? Like, did you also predict Demi was gonna win?
Yeah, no, it was a huge upset, and I actually have in my notes here, so you can kind of like there's four award shows that you can look at leading up to the Oscars to determine who's going to
Yeah,
win, and that's the SAG, the
yeah,
BAFTA, the Critics' Choice, and the Golden Globes. And so here I've got Demi Moore won three out of those four. Mikey Madison won the BAFTA, and so that's like a pretty strong chance to win Best Actress. So and I remember thinking like, man, Honora has won all these awards. It's going to be awkward when Demi Moore wins Best Actress, and then Mikey Madison won. So I was like, whoa.
yeah.
But just because of how strongly Demi Moore was predicted, it was pretty surprising.
Do you think Demi Moore was at all? I mean, I don't know how many people actually did see I'm Still Here from the Academy. I'd like to think they all did if they were voting, but you never know. I'm trying to wonder if like the ranked choice voting had any impact on it, or you think she was always projected to win if it was like regular like podium voting.
Um, I think it was always, yeah. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know. I remember last year, kind of the same thing happened. I have the notes from last year as well. So like
Uh,
Lily Gladstone had won the SAG, and usually the SAG is a strong indication. Timothy surprised with that this year. He won the SAG, but then the Oscar went to Emma Stone, and the Oscar this year
yeah,
went to Adrian Brody. So I guess you really never know. It seems
true.
like the best actress category specifically, there's always surprises.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right with that one. Yeah, I definitely am happy for Mikey Madison.
I am
I
too.
at the same time sad for like see not Fernanda Torres as much. I am sad for her, but I feel like for Brazil, her just being nominated was a huge thing anyways.
Yeah.
But like I'm kind of bummed for Demi Moore because she like really was like so likable in all her speeches and
Yeah. Well, when you
um
see the movie, I mean, she
yeah,
truly is amazing. It's great commentary on Hollywood. It's
I
actually from
mean
a French director, French woman.
Coralie
Um,
something, right?
yeah, Coralie Forget. And Demi Moore really is great. And it would have been a nice like career homage as well because she never won
Yeah.
before. And this may be, the older these people get, unfortunately, like their chances diminish because they're not in
I
movies as
mean,
much.
the movie was literally like talking about
Yeah,
like I know the themes of the movie are
I
real
saw a
like
tweet about that.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
It's like
like
this is literally the plot of Substance. Yeah.
yeah. But I don't know, hopefully this like kind of kicks her career into like a second act of
Yeah, I
sorts
think it
like
will.
because we've seen that with like Michelle Yeoh now, and like Kiwi Kwan. I feel like these people having like resurgences, because they're like back in Hollywood. Brendan Fraser, I feel like was another like success story that like after all that, I'm like, okay, Demi Moore, keep on acting out here. We want you back in the fold of
I
our
know.
screens.
We're rooting for you.
Yeah. Anything else that you had about the Oscars? Any notes that we didn't hit on your end?
No, I think we talked about it all. It seems like they also went by really fast, and I think just because I know all the categories by heart now, like what order they're going to be in, and I also think cutting out the performances of
The
best
songs.
original song saved a lot of
Do you
time.
think that's going to be a forever decision, or do you hope that it was just this year because there was nothing?
I hope so, to be honest. I think it.
Wow.
I mean, we can listen to it on the radio, like this is time wasted, not wasted, of course, but
I
I
will
think it could
say,
help the show go by.
I will say, I feel conflicted because on one hand, I agree with you because of what they did with uh the Encanto song a few years ago and had a
Yeah.
sorry, Megan Thee Stallion rap verse in it, and I was like, I don't
Yeah.
need that, but also like I kind of need that. So it's like there's like
Yeah.
double-edged sword.
Well, the other thing with it is the votes have already been cast. So, like, let's say someone came out and just absolutely nails it and then they don't win.
Yeah.
It would be different if, like, the performances kind of helped the decision be made. And I will say, like, Ryan Gosling last year with I'm Just Ken was amazing. And I'll never forget that.
Mhm.
So it is a double edged sword. Yeah.
For sure. This wouldn't be an Oscar podcast without some thanking. So I would like to thank the Academy, which in this episode is made up of Will for help with the sound engineering and sound recording, Freddy for the Brazilian Dragon logo, Anjali and my dad for helping this podcast come together for this specific episode. Jacob, where can the good people of the listenership keep up with you if you want them to check anything out? You mentioned Letterboxd if you want people to follow you there, but
Yeah, yeah.
and you also host a podcast, right?
I do. Yeah. I mean, if I guess I can plug that. It's Cinema Varies, all one word. Varies is in like variety. So cinema, the VARIES. I do. That's like on my list of things. So like I really want to be mindful of and kind of start it back up and be focused on. But it's a lot of work. It's tough, as you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. But yeah, go check it out. Like I listened to some of your old episodes and I was like, oh, this is some really good stuff, and I really
Oh,
enjoyed it.
thank you.
So yeah. In terms of me, is you can check out the Brazilian Dragon and everything I'm doing on Instagram at the Brazilian Dragon. See any upcoming shows or podcast stuff that I'm doing. Having a show on March 14th in Los Angeles at the Yard, and the tickets are on sale there with some of Jacob's friends as well performing, like Zeth and Jeremy
Yes.
and Tangela. But until next time, anything else, Jacob?
No, that's it. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. I think this is the first time I've been a guest on a podcast. So,
Well, welcome. Happy to help you make that a reality. And until next time, everybody, obrigado for listening. Goodbye.